because you're going to be on the spot. Okay, so we are ready to go. No, I'm going to let you go right here to the dais, right here. And
Pull that microphone down.
pull the microphone down, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. And we have Troop 781 with us today, and they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So whenever you're ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you all need to have something signed today to prove you were here, or no? No, that's fine. We can get 3 agendas and we can all sign them. If somebody wants to go get 3 agendas, we can sign them and get these guys all hooked up before the meeting's over. Okay, so the first item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You want to just give them to me all, or give them to Jim. Jim can sign them and then send them down the line. Perfect. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, and all items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. Are there any such requests?
Madam President, I move approval of the consent agenda.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to our regular agenda, and the first item on our agenda is the Finis Terra subdivision request for approval, annexation, and rezone. We'll have a staff report from Mindy Wallace.
President Baker and Commissioners, for the record, Mindy Wallace, Development Services. Before you today, we have a decision briefing for the Finis Terra subdivision. This is an annexation, rezoned foothills and preliminary plat application to allow for the development of 45 single-family building lots and 3 common lots on approximately 12 acres. The site has frontage on Warm Springs Avenue, a minor arterial roadway, and Teresa Drive, a local street. This development is estimated to generate approximately 428 vehicle trips per day, with 45 of those occurring during the PM peak hour. The application complies with all ACHD policies and standards. The applicant and staff are in agreement on all findings for consideration and site-specific conditions of approval. And this item is on the regular agenda to allow testimony from area property owners. Staff recommends approval of the staff report as written, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mindy?
I just have a couple questions.
Mr. Hanson?
So, Mindy, when the description of Warm Springs and the improvements that are going to happen along Warm Springs, that's an area where you just come off of fairly high-speed State Highway 21. Was there any speed studies done as to the impacts of those improvements on the speeds, current speeds on Warm Springs?
President Baker and Commissioner Hanson, no.
The next question is regarding the property owner to the west is Pet Haven, that area. There's a stub street called Hermosa Vista Avenue. What's the process that we went through to select or agree to the developer's selection of that site as to this is where the road's going to eventually go across your property? Did they have any say as to it, or are they just stuck with whatever?
I'll defer to the applicant. He negotiated the location with the adjacent property owner.
The in our policies, it says we discourage meandering sidewalks. In this area, though, the sidewalk and the bike lane, this whole corridor has the shared. It's a shared use path. Isn't meandering sidewalks actually, or a shared use path, actually more safe to keep cyclists from going so fast that it endangers pedestrians? So that would this really apply in a situation where it's not a traditional sidewalk where you have a bike lane in the road?
Well, typically a bike lane and a sidewalk are separated. Our policy requires the construction of a standard 5-foot wide detached concrete sidewalk. If the applicant is proposing to construct something else or the city requires that, we'll work with them on what that may look like as part of the review of their construction drawings.
But we don't make a distinction as to the limitations on meandering based upon whether it's a shared use or a standard sidewalk.
Typically, no, we will take a look at it if it seems to have a lot of curves in it. The reason that's there is for ADA standards.
Right, ADA and drainage, I suppose, maintenance. The other thing that struck me, again, this is probably one the developer can ask. We just finished approving, well, not so just, but Harris Ranch North. The access road has a bike lane going up and a shared use coming down, which makes sense because cyclists can't drive up the hill as fast as the cars going up to avoid cars having to go into the other lane to safely pass them. This one has a fairly sharp turn. Do you know, was there discussion as to whether we should have an uphill bike lane to make sure so that as you go up the hill, there's space and it's not likely, the risk is to the driver driving up that, in order to accommodate the bike, they might pull over into the other lane, meanwhile, around that sort of blind curve.
Commissioner Hanson, the road that goes up to Harris Ranch North is actually a collector roadway. It's designated as having the bike lane and the sidewalk on one side. This extension of Bryan's Way is a local street.
Right.
We don't typically have bike lanes on local streets. If that's something the commission's interested in, we would need to have some additional pavement added to the roadway. They're currently proposing a 27-foot wide street section.
All right, well, it's just, I assume because of the attraction of the neighborhood, there's gonna be a lot of people cycling up and down that hill. So I'll save that for the developer, and maybe you can answer that. Those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, developer, Mr. Taunton, if you would like to come up and give us your report.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the commission. My name is, hold on, let's get this thing. Okay. My name is Bob Taunton. My address is 2724 South Palmatier Way in Boise, and I'm representing the applicant and the property owner. I really don't have a presentation tonight. We're in full agreement with the staff report, specific conditions of approval, and we look forward to approval tonight. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Taunton? Mr. Hanson?
Oh, I'll let Mr. Woods.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. We received a letter from the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association dated May 22nd, 2018. Did you get a copy of that?
Commissioner Woods, yes, I did.
Can you go through some of those concerns for us, please?
Okay, may I pull it out of my file here? First thing that I'd like to say is that we think it's a good idea to develop a plan for the corridor. As some may know, I spent 1.5 years leading the ULI Healthy Corridors project for Vista Avenue. So we have a fair bit of experience in how to get that underway and so on. One thing I'd like to say is that at the January meeting, which is referenced in here, I know that the Neighborhood Association was disappointed that there wasn't some momentum that came out of that, but frankly, they really didn't put anything on the table. There was no proposal, there was no vision, there was no process, and I'm not being critical, I'm just saying that it was really difficult for anybody to respond to. We were looking for some sort of guidance that we might be able to adopt for our plan, but there really wasn't anything that was specifically mentioned other than the idea of a roundabout. And your staff that attended the meeting indicated that the initial control at Teresa and at Warm Springs would probably be stop signs, and then as things developed and things were warranted, there could be other solutions that would be looked at. The other thing about the uphill bike lane, again, we view this as a local street, very low volume. It's really a short distance. We didn't frankly even think about the need to have an uphill bike lane. We are very constrained, as you can see from the plan on the monitor. monitor that because of the geometrics that are necessary for that road, and that means staying under 10% grade and having, flatter grades at the intersection with Teresa and also up at the top, and I'll address the stub road situation in a moment that Commissioner Hanson asked. The geometrics are such that it really leaves us very little room between the road and the right-of-way for Warm Springs to be able to do much of anything. So if we were to add a bike lane, that would kind of push everything to the west. By the way, Warm Springs is north-south in this situation here, so Pet Haven is not west, but is actually north of the subdivision, just to get everybody's, compass figured out here. So as far as the question about the uphill bike lane, we didn't give it any thought and don't really think it's necessary. But we're willing to participate in a discussion about corridor. We are doing a great deal of improvement to the appearance of the corridor. I have the landscape plan here we can look at, but I can tell you very briefly that we are landscaping along Warm Springs. We're continuing the landscaping up Teresa Drive to our entrance to the Bryan Way Road going up. So because of the wide right-of-way that exists to the south, that seeing the landscaping that we will install, which is irrigated trees and other plantings, it'll be more than just the frontage that occurs on Warm Springs. So we also will improve the intersection. If you've been out there and have seen the road condition right now, it looks very unfinished, I guess is the term to use. We will be reconstructing that, straightening it out. The additional sidewalk on Warm Springs, the school district has indicated that will be a help to the students, the elementary school students that pick up a bus or get on the bus at that particular location. So we'll be doing a lot to improve the appearance of Warm Springs. But if there's some sort of theme that can come out of a collaboration of stakeholders and so on, then there's probably time for us to be able to do some design with our perhaps landscaping or anything else that could fit within our budget that would be consistent with what they come up with.
Anyone else who has a question?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. So I take it from your description that, yeah, you're very supportive of the neighborhood's request for ACHD and the other stakeholders to enter into a collaboration, and that your client would participate to update the Warm Springs Avenue corridor plan that was what I call the Brighton plan, only because they paid for it back in 2009, which really set out the vision, but didn't quite go all the way to Highway 21.
Correct.
So you're supportive of that?
Well, Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I guess supportive in what sense? I mean, philosophically, yes, we're supportive. If there's a monetary cost, I'd certainly have to review that with my client.
Yeah, I think that the expectation would be that all property owners along it, public and private, be key participants. And it certainly is. It's unique situation because it's a minor arterial on the master street map. It's constrained to 3 lanes. It used to be a state highway.
Yes.
It used to be a main thoroughfare into downtown. It has changed. The main thoroughfare is up over Federal Way and the interstate. And so now as developments have come in, people still use it as, until the avenue actually reflects what the expectation is, what the plan is. People use it as a throughfare. And the unique situation being most of the people walking back and forth live on one side and go to amenities, the river, the bike path, the green belt on the south side or the west side. And that in and of itself creates a conflict.
Well, we certainly would support the idea of establishing where the pedestrian crossings would be, what they would look like. I know that's the neighborhood association is very focused on that. We will have residents there that will probably want to walk across Warm Springs or ride a bike across Warm Springs to get to the future park. But how that's done, how that's planned, I mean, that's a whole process that needs to take place, a collaborative process, as you pointed out.
Right, thank you.
I think that's outside the scope of this application as well. So are there any questions regarding this application?
Oh, I just had the question regarding the discussions with the Pet Haven property owners. Oh, yeah, you were going to address that.
Yes, President Baker, Commissioner Hanson, the family involved is the Duzman family. They own approximately 8 acres to the north of us. We approached them because they own the fee land under the Pet Haven private roadway. And so we approached them about the possibility of creating an easement where we could utilize the Pet Haven laneway, subject to improvements required by Boise Fire, as an emergency access. So we created a 44-foot wide easement that's been executed by all the parties, and that was the location that they felt was most appropriate, given they have leased out property to the east to an individual that's running a CSA.
Right. Yep. No,
Food and farming operations. So that was really the limitation, which then created that has to be where the stub street was. So it wasn't our doing to create it in that location. I mean, obviously it was a discussion back and forth as to where exactly it might fit, but that's essentially where it would be.
So the stub street actually would be emergency access to an existing private access point, so that if for some reason the main road down the hill is blocked, fire vehicles will come up over a private road, Pet Haven. and
Correct,
to-
yes. And the Pet Haven lane will need to be improved to the standards of Boise Fire. And they're reviewing the easement agreement right now. And we've been out there on site. They've seen the circumstances, they know what the situation is, and they were supportive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a number of people signed up who want to testify on this item. I'll call your name. You can come up, give your name and address for the record, and we'll set the time at 3 minutes. So the first one will be Catherine Nice.
I have a question, Madam Chair. Does the representative of the Neighborhood Association get the initial 10 minutes and then additional?
Is there a representative of the Neighborhood Commission? Okay. Why don't you come on up and give your name and address for the record, and thank you.
President Baker and Commissioners, my name is Celeste Miller. My address is 3620 East Warm Springs Avenue in Boise, 83716. I'm in the Dallas Harris West portion of Harris Ranch. And it sounds like you did receive Mr. Mooney's letter from yesterday, and as he expressed, I just want to emphasize a couple of his points and give a couple of examples of why those points are important to the neighbors. And our focus at the moment is primarily on safety concerns of all of the users of the roads out really in the whole Barber Valley, but let's just talk about the intersection of Warm Springs Avenue and Highway 21 and coming onto Warm Springs. We have this unusual good circumstance of these fantastic developments all of a sudden occurring at one time in and around that intersection, those being the park. There is an improved section of Greenbelt that will open next month, and then the Idaho Bird Observatory is moving its operations into the western end of the Sioux Howell Park, and we have the 42 housing unit development that you're considering tonight, which raises in the minds of the neighbors concerns about everyone who uses the road, cyclists, vehicles, pedestrians, visitors, just the whole gamut, school buses, all types of vehicles that particularly will visit the Idaho Bird Observatory. So this confluence of good events is presenting us with some problems that I think are the kind you like to solve. And given these circumstances, the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association really encourages this group to look at these traffic issues that are nearby or adjacent to the proposed subdivision from a broader perspective because of so many traffic-inducing events that are about to occur. And we just hope that you keep in mind, or make your decisions in light of the entire Warm Springs corridor plan and the existing master street map. And Commissioner Hanson mentioned both of those, I think, because what we have at the moment is this broad section of Warm Springs Avenue with a wider right-of-way than exists at the very entrance of the Finisterra subdivision, which is it's kind of an invitation for people to enter Warm Springs from the highway already at a high rate of speed through there, and possibly cut through to get to downtown by Warm Springs Avenue instead of going up through farther up Highway 21. So we're hoping that the treatment of the roads right in this area will take these factors into consideration. As Mr. Mooney explained in his letter, he provided some good graphics, and to consider things such as an enhanced crosswalk. The example that comes to my mind of a crosswalk that might be appropriate given these circumstances is one that exists now over by the fire station in the Harris Ranch neighborhoods that is suddenly very useful to the brand new road that I don't think has even opened yet, that will take us into Marianne Williams Park and the new under construction Brighton subdivision that all connects now to the Harris Ranch neighborhoods right by the fire station. And that crosswalk has a pedestrian operated red light signal that stops traffic, and it has been there for all the 5 years I've lived out there. And the road that's really going to bring some traffic is just opening any day now, I hope. But in any event, that's an example of where there was some advanced planning on that crosswalk. And I can tell you from our neighborhood meetings that the neighbors are very focused on the crosswalks in order to get from one side of Warm Springs Avenue over to the river for myriad reasons, recreational reasons. So, an enhanced crosswalk we think would be appropriate for considering what to do with the roads at this moment in time out there. And the other big one is to consider, I think Mr. Taunton mentioned at the January meeting, which I did not attend, there was some discussion of a possible roundabout just south of Teresa Way, where the ACHD right-of-way expands from an apparent old use of location of a way station. So these are the types of treatments that we hope that you will keep in mind. Road treatments that are really part and parcel of this development in light of everything else that is sort of popping out there, if you will, all of a sudden. And we are strongly encouraging use of, or an addition of a bike lane on the road that goes up Bryan Way and into the Finisterra subdivision. So just to wrap up, we're always interested in collaborative updating of the Warm Springs corridor planning documents. We hope that the Highway District will maintain or retain the master street map with the 3-lane treatment of Warm Springs Avenue because of the the traffic control, traffic calming concerns that we have, and the cut through to downtown. So we want to encourage treatments that will discourage those traffic features. And all of this is just communicated with an eye toward safety of everybody who is out there, everyone who uses the roads. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Catherine Nice. So give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Catherine Nice, 6227 East Playwright, Boise 83716, and that's in the River Heights subdivision. Madam Chairman, Commissioners, I will echo some of what we've just heard. I've attended all of the meetings. I've been in Boise for 41 years, and this is really the first time I've ever felt moved to provide my opinion on some issue, and there have been many others. We know that there's 3 key features that are opening up, that are happening out in the area where Finnis Terrace is, and the safety concerns for buses, cars, bikes, vehicles are very important to me, which is one of the reasons that I've elected to come and talk to you for a moment tonight. I want to make sure that the Finnis Terrace, that the process complements the whole Warm Springs corridor and the existing master street map that have been mentioned earlier. We want to make sure there's calming devices along the way, calming treatments, and discouraging cut through along to downtown via Warm Springs. I can support any kind of right-of-way or turning lanes around the park entrances, and certainly around Teresa into Finnis Terrace. So I can support the bike lane. There's a lot of bikers up there, and we definitely don't want them out onto the main street. And I can support a high-value crosswalk, at least in one area at the end of Teresa there. So my ask to you would be encourage the collaborative process to update the Warm Springs corridor planning, retain the master street map, with the idea that we encourage speed control and discourage unnecessary travel along that street, Warm Springs, and all of this, of course, with a goal of safety for everybody concerned. Thank you.
Richard Youngling, or something close to that?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You are very close. My name is indeed Richard Yingling. I live at 5885 South Eastwood Place, which is in the Bryan subdivision. And if you were to look at the map and you went from the bottom right-hand corner, maybe 200 feet this direction, you would come to my house. I have some of the same concerns that you've already heard this evening. I'll try not to be totally repetitive. But one of the concerns that I've had and I've raised before is if you think about the slopes that are being dealt with where that subdivision road comes down to Teresa, there is exceedingly steep land there that's being dealt with to get that road. Well, there's also very steep pavement coming down from Eastwood Place. You only see just a little portion of it on the drawing here, but that is quite steep. And there have been 2 times in the last 2 years that I've actually had to tow somebody up the hill because they couldn't get up the hill in the wintertime. If we have traffic coming down that road, intersecting with this new street, those people are coming downhill to get to that intersection. I can just foresee cars sliding together in the middle of that intersection, and it's just not a very appealing thought to me. And I would really prefer to see that intersection be placed elsewhere. I know that your policies require that new road match up with the location of the existing Bryan Way. I understand that's the policy, and on a piece of flat ground, that would make all the sense in the world to me, but given the slopes that are here, that policy doesn't seem to me to be appropriate applied in this particular instance. I'd love to see that intersection be at a flatter spot, which unfortunately would make it closer to Warm Springs Avenue, but I think that still is less problematic than trying to have that intersection where it's proposed here. The other big concern that I have had with this development from day one, and that concern is even more heightened when I heard the number of anticipated vehicle interactions in the area, has to do with getting kids onto and off of the school buses. Right now, the school bus, if I may, stops right here along the edge of the road, right in front of the intersection. We only have in the neighborhood of a dozen children at the current time using that school bus. But if we have 40-some new homes up there, we can assume that many of those homes are going to have children. We are going to have an already dangerous situation become more dangerous in the future. And I would like to see you consider some other arrangement so that we can get the school bus off the highway, get the kids away from the traffic, and look to the future of the children in the neighborhood. And if I might have just one more.
Can you make a concluding
Yeah.
statement?
Well, I will. This is our neighborhood. You know, many of the people in the neighborhood have lived here a long, long time, some for 40 years. I'm a relative newcomer. I've only been in the neighborhood for 5 or 6 years now. We deal with the traffic on Warm Springs Avenue, the speed of the traffic, our children and grandchildren, our concerns. We really would like you to think about the future of the people who already live in this subdivision and who can't just pack up and move away because of what's happened. We need you to think about the impacts of this development and work with us on that, if you would.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question, if I could.
Mr. Hanson?
Just a question, the speeds which you described and the school bus stops, and I know the school district does not like to have school bus stops on arterials where traffic is going by fast. Would that be mitigated with, if you saw some treatment there that actually slowed the traffic considerably, that it help to see some sort of, enhanced high-value crosswalk or enhanced feature that really reduced the speeds?
Well, that would definitely make me feel better.
Good.
I appreciate that suggestion. The other thing that is very possible is the right-of-way down below the Teresa intersection is very wide. Right now, there's a ditch there, but it wouldn't be that costly to put a pipe in that ditch and pave an area over there so that the bus could actually get off of the highway. I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation, given the situation we have, and given the speed with which people tear up and down that road.
Yeah, I'm point out you call it a highway. It's actually, the highway used to be that, but the highway is supposed to be 21.
Yeah, well, it's still treated as a highway today.
I agree. I know, I've seen it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Robert Croskin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Honorable Commissioners. My name is Robert Crossland. I live at 6057 South Bryan Way. I have lived there for the last 18 years, assuming some other people have lived there longer than I have, but I've seen the Barber Valley grow since living out there. I was aware of it was a highway before Highway 21 went in. My back property is the currently closed truck weigh station. So I travel back and forth to work. Past 18 years, I work at HP twice a day. So I've seen many many improvements, many developments going over the years. Past 2 years, there's been an explosion. I would encourage you sometime when you're off work, take a drive out there and see what's going on. If you have never been out there, it's the population has grown out there. I understand, developments in Boise is growing. I'm concerned, along with my fellow neighbors, that this Finnis Terrace development has too many houses. There's too many going in. It's going to add to the traffic that's on Warm Springs. I want to echo Mr. Youngling's concerns about their entrance into their development off of Teresa. That's really not a good development solution in my eyes, and a lot of people have concerns about that because we've got kids getting into school there. They're getting dropped off at school. Parents are picking their kids up from school there. The winter conditions are a factor. Just 2 years ago, when we had the worst winter we had in a long time, was pretty bad, and there was a lot of people stuck on Bryan Way. Our side of town is usually the last to get any snow services, sanding or grading. So we have to take that into consideration as well. Echo that if the stops and traffic treatment roundabouts and stuff like that, I think it warrants a good investigation and study. When I came in, when I heard that you asked if there had been a study about the traffic conditions out there, and she said no, that kind of bothers me. So I definitely feel that there needs to be some study and some research before anything goes in out there. I really like the idea of the park going in and the Birds Conservatory. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago about that, and that's a great idea. The traffic, it needs to slow on Warm Springs. It's still a highway. Over the years, it's been bikes, and a lot of traffic. So we need to look at the speed conditions out there and make it safe for everybody. And the development needs to me, there's too many houses.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the people that have signed up to speak on this issue. Is there anyone else who wants to talk about this? Okay, if not, I'll give the developer representative an opportunity to rebut some of the things that you've heard.
Madam Chairman, members of the commission, I just wanted to talk about the school bus stop. Early on, I was in contact with Lynette Daw, who's the transportation director for Boise Schools, and she indicated that she thought that the improvements that we were doing, the added sidewalks, both on Teresa and on Warm Springs, would greatly improve the conditions for the school children. And the gentleman is correct. The bus stops on the south side of Teresa currently. The kids stand in the dirt because, of course, there's no sidewalk on that side of the street. But there will now be sidewalks on the other side of the street, which will greatly improve the situation. And there will be a wide shoulder, of course, because the pavement, the right-of-way and where the sidewalk is, there will be quite a bit of gravel shoulder that will be just off the pavement, so the bus could pull off in that particular situation. So she thought the conditions would be greatly improved. I haven't had any additional commentary from her since she's seen the full application. Speeds, it'd be great if the speeds were lower, but that's nothing that is within control. They're 35 miles an hour until you get out to the just past, I guess, the junior high, and then they step up. That's really a call that others can make. If we could slow the speeds, we'd probably do it tomorrow, but that's not possible. So really, that's all I have to add. If there are any additional questions, be glad to answer them.
Okay, are there any other questions for Mr. Taunton? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Commission, you have it before you.
Right. Madam President, I would move that the commission approve the staff report with the request that ACHD staff work in collaboration with the stakeholders identified by the Warm Springs, the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association to update as soon as possible the Warm Springs Corridor Plan, in particular the enhanced crosswalks, to coincide with the opening of the development.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, motion dies. Ms. Arnold, did you have a comment?
Well, I had a question for our legal department. I don't think we can add such a condition to an application because it burdens an applicant with
We do
something
it all
over
the
which
time.
you would have no control, have no ability to.
Madam President, Commissioner Arnold, Scott Spears, Assistant General Counsel, for the record, yes, you are correct. That is a condition that we could not impose.
Okay. All right, is there another motion?
Madam President,
Mr. Goldberg?
I would move that the application for annexation and rezone for Finis Terrace subdivision be approved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Well,
Mr. Woods?
Well, I would say that I intend to support the motion. I think that for those of you that took the time to come here tonight, I think we all appreciate that testimony and that input. There's not a day goes by that I don't wish that the Treasure Valley was the same way it was 20 years ago when I came here. I understand explosive growth. I appreciate your commenting on that. We see explosive growth throughout the county in every one of these hearings we have, and it's tough to adjust to. And so, in my mind, making sure that we get the planning right and get the infrastructure right is the important part. We can't do anything about the density, but certainly we appreciate the input about the enhanced crosswalk, about the roundabout, about having a plan for Warm Springs. And so, although we can't burden the developer with that, I think you're hearing support for that from the commission to make sure that that's a priority and that we move forward with that. So, the school bus stop, I thought about that, and I don't want to get in the 11th hour trying to make judgments. Sometimes it's safer for the bus to stop right on the road and stop traffic and not pull off to the side and have traffic have the opportunity to come whizzing by. So I appreciate that concern. Hopefully, the district will work closely with the highway district in making sure that we aren't creating an unsafe situation for kids out there. But thank you for all the input here tonight. Appreciate it.
Okay, is any further discussion?
yes. So I'll
Mr.
support.
Hanson?
I'll support the motion, and having heard the comments, I will see that this, and we'll continue to ask the staff to continue to take an active role in working towards taking that corridor plan, which was developed in 2009, extending it and implementing it. It's going to require all the stakeholders, and one of the side effects of having such a rapidly growing, expanding county, Old Valley, is that our staffs are stretched thin to just process. We can't staff up to the extent that we probably should to be able to handle it. Same thing with the city of Boise. It sounds like the Parks Department is stretched thin, Fish and Game is stretched thin. But what I appreciate is the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association steps into leadership roles and makes things happen, in a timely manner. They're persistent. You purchased that property above River Heights, I think, was it? Because it needed to be done, and you didn't want to just wait and let somebody else take that lead. So I got your back on this. Let's make it happen, because we should never say, oh, we ought to have put in some traffic calming, some sort of crosswalk features after all of those homes are filled with families that are using it, and we realize that, oh, we've got to make a priority. But it ought to be timed in a way that we can avoid those kind of risks. And we have to deal with something we haven't dealt with yet, which is we got a whole bunch of leftover right-of-way we inherited from ITD when we shifted the road over to a minor arterial and took over jurisdiction from ITD. So we have to deal with that. So what I hear from this developer, I hear it from other developers in the valley too, is that they're committed to participate, mostly because you say, you're gonna be there, aren't you? And they show up. I'm very impressed with the way that the specific planning ordinance was developed and the way the board from the neighborhood association keeps us accountable, all of us, all, both in the public and private sector, accountable to the vision that we all say we have for this. And if it's just a plan that sits on the shelf, it's no good. We actually have to implement it.
Okay.
This is the last step. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And I will look forward to seeing how that's implemented.
And the question before us is to approve the annexation and rezone and the preliminary plat application for Finisterra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much for coming. Okay, the next two items on our agenda, we're going to have one staff report, and we will have two motions. They're both to receive public testimony declaring real property to be surplus. The first is resolution number 2238, and this is located at, it's parcel, let's see, S 0509336452 in Eagle. And the second is resolution number 2239, which declares the property surplus located at 590 South Cole Road in Boise. These are both public hearings, so I will open the public hearing and we will have a staff report from Lori Baird.
Madam President, Commissioners, for the record, my name is Lori Baird with the Real Estate Department, and today is the time, date, and place that was advertised in the Idaho Statesman that we'd hold a public hearing. The public hearing is to allow anyone to come forward to testify why we should not sell these two properties. Both of these properties were purchased for projects, and the portions we're selling are not needed for the projects. The first one is in Eagle. We just put the plaza extension through, and it was just a little portion that was left, and the adjoining property owner would like to purchase it. The second one was purchased for the Cole and Franklin project, and we're going to do a mitigation with the adjoining property owner so they will have access. These are the appraised values. Before we're allowed to move forward to sell public property, we are required to hold a public hearing. The public hearing, again, is to allow anyone to come forward to testify as to why we should not sell them. If nobody comes forward, Commission can then adopt the resolution to declare it surplus property and to set their procedures for the sale. If they do adopt the resolution, we first have to offer the properties to the adjoining property owners. If they decline to purchase the properties, then we would move forward with a public sale. Staff would recommend that we hold the public sale via auction, sealed bid auction, and we would not sell the properties for less than a minimum appraised value. The highest bidder would be required to pay 10% down the day of the auction and close within 90 days. Staff recommends that Commission adopts Resolution 2238 and 2239 and to define the properties to be surplus properties and to set the procedures for the sale.
Okay, are there any questions of staff? Okay, is there anyone who wishes to testify on resolution 2238, the parcel in Eagle? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item and we'll go ahead and vote on it.
Madam Chair, I would move to adopt resolution 2238, declaring real property to be surplus and directing the sale and surplus of that property.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to testify on resolution number 2239, which is the property on South Cole Road in Boise? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And
Madam Chair,
Ms. Arnold?
I move that we adopt resolution 2239, declaring the property located at 590 South Pole Road to be surplus and directing the sale of the property.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that concludes our regular agenda. The last item is public communications. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the commission? Want to come forward, and same rules apply. Give your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Julie Hulvey. I live at 3707 Nez Perce Street in Boise, Idaho, commonly called the Bench. And my reason for being here tonight has to do with a property development around the corner from where I live. The property is normally addressed as 1720 South Latah Street. And in the city of Boise's way of looking at things, it's a substandard lot. It's a 50-foot lot, which was purchased, and a development agreement was put through for a duplex to be put on the property. Also, part of that substandard lot development requires that garages are put behind the home and on the alley. And also part of that, according to City of Boise, is that driveways and entrances to those garages will be paved. Now, I know you don't like to hear about them. Let's get over here to the ACHD. ACHD also has a regulation that says that those alleys will be paved. I believe it's 72, I'll come up with it in a moment. 7210.2 states that if a proposed development abuts an existing alley, the dedication of additional right-of-way to obtain a minimum width from the center line of the alley of 8 feet for residential uses and 10 feet for non-residential or commercial uses may be required. Each development will be reviewed by the district on a case-by-case basis. Now the point, if the proposed development takes access from the alley, which it is required to do, the developer will be required to pave the entire width of the right-of-way from the nearest public street and to the abutting development. Those don't seem to be conflicting regulations to me, only that there is a circuitous way around it, in my opinion, that seems to somehow have developed over time. The statuses of the alleys are changed from right-of-ways to maybe not fully open right-of-ways to right-of-ways that have encroachments, and leases are offered to abutting property owners, and therefore they are able to use the alley without the paving, basically, in my case. My argument is I live on the south end of this proposed right-of-way, and I just don't need more dust coming my way as 4 cars go in and out on a daily basis, once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. It's an old part of town, and whether or not a substandard lot development with 2 buildings on it, a duplex, is an improvement or not is a matter of opinion. However, it is a newer property, and the property itself would benefit by having an alley that is paved versus an alley that is put down in gravel. There's pros and cons to it all. Gravel is cheaper. I don't want my neighborhood to be done cheaply. It's not a lot of money, probably, in the difference of paving or graveling an alley. It's just that the long-term benefit, the public interest, would be served by following the regulations and doing something that, if it doesn't degrade the property, seems to be more sensible than allowing a graveled alley. I have a letter from the planner, Dawn, that was written on February 6th. And one of her conditions of approval, or one of her findings of fact, rather, is the alley right-of-way is currently unopened, unmaintained, and unimproved. The north end of the alley has a fence across it. If the city is requiring access to the site off of the unopened and unimproved alley right-of-way, the applicant should be required to go through the process of opening the alley right-of-way. The applicant should be required to pave the full width of the alley right-of-way from the nearest public street and to abutting the development. And when I received this in the email, I thought, oh my gosh, this is too good to be true, and which it was. A later contradictory statement came that a lease agreement had been signed, and I just don't think this is really what was intended when the laws were put in place. If we're going to add density to our inner city, why would we do it in a way that puts the burden of the development on me, my neighbor, other people that live along the alley, rather than asking a developer to do it right when it needs to be done? Here on a Ada County clerk recording, number 2 of 45 items done by the developer Profit Share LLC is the, I guess, filing of the lease agreement on February 7th. And that would have been after I received the letter from Dawn. I don't think there's much more that I can say. I do have a picture that might shed some light on this. I took it from the city's website.
Well, Ms. Hulvey?
Yes.
Who signed that letter, that original letter? Dawn?
Dawn Battles?
Okay.
Yeah.
From our right-of-way department? Who is Dawn
She's a
Battles?
planner.
Is that City of Boise?
No, that's ACHD.
Oh, ACHD.
Let me see what more I can tell you.
And then there was what, a license agreement?
Apparently,
Okay.
at the other end of the building, there was a license agreement, and possibly unknown from one party to the other, they're in conflict. And
We can't, we're not going to be able to solve the issue from up here.
Yes.
What I am going to do is I'm going to have you talk with our attorney, Scott Spears. Raise your hand over there. And you can either talk to him tonight or you can set an appointment later on and maybe he can work this out because, like I said, we can't deal with it tonight.
okay,
Because
I understand that. Thank you.
Yeah, there is an issue, obviously.
Yes, I also have some statements from 3 of my neighbors.
Okay.
I'll give.
Has the duplex been built yet?
No, it has not been built. We thought it was going to be built as soon as the thaw came, and there are questions as to whether it really is going to be built now, for reasons I can't tell you because I haven't had those conversations, just overheard them.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, it just sounds, I don't. So
Okay.
there's my, but it's.
Just want to
it's-
say,
Wait a minute,
you're one
excuse
of the
me.
best documented, so I
Jim,
appreciate that.
Jim, excuse me. I do want to say that it sounds like there's some contradictory issues going on. So that's why I'm going to have you talk with the attorney, try to figure out exactly what's what here.
Okay. And then I would like to also say that in the license agreement, it does say it's a cancelable agreement.
Okay.
There
well,
was no fee for the license.
Okay.
And I just think the public interest is served by, let's all play by the same rules if we can.
Okay, Mr. Goldthorpe?
I only have a comment. First is to thank you so much for coming here and being so incredibly well prepared. And the second one is to the Boy Scouts that were here today. You just saw someone who was prepared, which you're always supposed to be, come here before a government expecting to be heard, and she was, and she will be. You learned something tonight, correct? Okay.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around. So, Mr. Hanson?
No, that's my comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, and like I said, Scott Spears is the one you should speak with.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the commission? If not, meeting adjourned. Sounded weird.
Dang, yeah.
Sounds like the hour.
Yeah. Who is Don Battles? What? Who is Don Battles? Oh, where is she? I've never heard of her. Who's Don Battles?